Morning, everybody, and welcome to Talking Niagara. All I can say is damn time change.
Is that what got you messed up?
Well, I don't know. This morning, I don't know what time it was when I woke up, but I woke up, I thought normal time.
Well, I did that yesterday. And then I thought, oh, I slept in because I looked at the clock. I said, oh, I slept in. Then I realized, oh no, I didn't.
Yeah, what I hate about this time of year is when we what happens when we got it messes your body up, right?
Yes, indeed, it does. But I used to hate it because I used to have to now drive in the dark to go to work. And there's that little bit of time where it's nice and bright in the morning when you drive to work, and then you got to wait. You got to wait a long time before that month catches up again.
I know.
All right.
And I wish they would just move the clock half an hour, move Eastern time to half an hour forward and leave it at that. Just put it half an hour forward and stop it. Morning, Mike.
Yeah, there's I don't know. There's still that argument that we'll save power for if we do this, keep the daylight savings time. But as our Ontario premier has said, that he is willing to do it, provided he gets cooperation from the states that are close to us, and also
probably. All I can say is, Mr. President, time to listen to Talking Niagara. End summertime nonsense.
President?
Mr. President Trump. Mr. President Trump, just end the summertime nonsense, will you?
Well, Trump has come out and spoken of this, and he says, well, I've got half the people that say they like it and half the people that don't. So he says that he's going to come up with some kind of decision. But I think that's way down his priority list right now.
That's the problem, isn't it? It's way down the priority list.
He wants to steal Canada and Greenland first.
Yeah.
Before he changes the clock. Unless someone could say it would be a massive victory if you could do that, then he'd jump all over it.
Yeah.
Like changing the Gulf of Mexico to the Gulf of America. What a child.
Yeah. Well, it's like that to me is just a Pyrrhic victory in the most literal of senses.
What, the Gulf of Mexico?
Yeah.
Well, Pyrrhic victory means you lose so much for the victory. It like you almost.
Yeah.
It's not worth it. I think in his mind it is worth it because it's a symbolic victory that like no one knew that this was an issue, and all of a sudden he says it's an issue, and he changes and then everybody believes him. Oh yeah, I should have been Gulf of America all along. That's his forte. BS, how he can BS everybody.
Okay, let's start with where the weekend has been. Mark Carney wins the Liberal leadership by a landslide. I think he got 84% of the vote. Chrystia Freeland was second.
Yeah, I think there's about 160,000 delegates, and he won over 130,000 of them.
Yeah,
so that's pretty much a landslide on the first ballot.
And I had predicted he was going to win on the first ballot.
I mean, the Liberals didn't have enough time to drink their coffee and eat their donut before it was all over.
Right. Mike was saying, do we hear Jean Chrétien?
No, I didn't. I didn't hear it. I have to catch up on all the videos that I just read about it.
I didn't, but from what I've heard about what he said, he was, somebody was talking about Chrétien and said, if only he were 40 years younger.
Oh, he's feisty. He's
Yeah.
feisty. Mary, he's the guy that told the U.S. to go get stuffed when the U.S. insisted we go to Iraq, and we went to Afghanistan because that was the one and only time that NATO enacted Article 5. When one is attacked, the all are attacked. So NATO worked at that particular time. Everybody joined in and went to Afghanistan and defeated the Taliban as much as they could. And the United States stayed there for another million years. But that was that's also the source of contention here now when Trump says that they don't get anything out of NATO, when the only time Article 5 was ever invoked, it was in support of the United States. But Chrétien said, oh, no, I'll go to Afghanistan because that's what we're supposed to do, but no way am I going to go to Iraq. I mean,
Chrétien spoke, and he was good, according to Angela, 91 years of age.
Good show. The tough guy, little tough guy from Shawinigan. I think he was one of 18 kids or something like that.
The youngest of 18 kids, I believe.
No, I think he's right in the middle of the pack, but I'm not quite sure about that.
Well, somebody once said he was the youngest of his family, but anyway, not
it's a wonder he survived that many kids. There wasn't any food left over by the time the little fella came along.
Chrétien was there, of course, to do the business of here's the count before, here's while the count is going on, I'm going to give you a nice speech about this and that and the other. While those guys over there are doing the counting the votes, right?
Yep.
And it was not counting the votes here. It's basically weighing the votes.
Yeah, pretty much. Putting them in the books and weighing them.
Yeah, that's how much. Oh, not that any of the votes actually were paper votes anyway, because I would by the fact there was 300,000 votes cast, of course it would have been done electronically, right?
Possibly. I don't know how they do it. Remember, federal election, we still have a paper ballot. So I don't know if they would have a
I know, but what I'm saying, the Liberal Party would probably have had an electronic vote, because it would have been Liberals across the country. I know there was the event that happened was in London, Ontario, the Congress.
I don't even know where it was, actually. I did know,
I believe it was London. For some reason, London, Ontario rings a bell.
Okay, so now we got King Carney. What's he going to do?
Well, this is actually an interesting question, because somebody is now saying, well, Carney can't be prime minister because he's not elected.
No,
yes,
that's not true.
Well, I was going to say that's exactly it. It's not true. It happened in 1894, and it's happened again in 1981.
It's happened a bunch of different times. In the 1920s with Mackenzie King. He was the prime minister. There's a bunch of different times, like where that has happened. Here it says here, in a general election in June 1945, King lost a seat in Prince Albert, Saskatchewan, but he remained the prime minister and formed a government, as he had done he formed the government in 21, 25, 26, 35, and 40. Like 2 decades later, he followed up his riding loss with a run elsewhere in the following months, winning the by-election in Glengarry, Ontario. Yeah. So there you have it. At Confederation, Sir John A. Macdonald was appointed as Governor General to form the first constituent government on July 1st. However, he was not elected to the House of Commons until 2 weeks later. So it is not without precedent.
Yeah, it is. It has happened multiple times before, and the last Pierre Trudeau, when Pierre Trudeau stepped down, what's his name? Turner. John Turner was basically sworn in as prime minister following Trudeau and triggered a general election in September. He was June 30th. John Turner was sworn in as prime minister, succeeding Trudeau, and he triggered an election on September the 4th. Now, I believe that when we've got a new leader, we should get an election.
He can't survive without getting into Parliament somewhere.
Yeah.
So they're going to have to. Now, Carney's problem is he's from Edmonton and around Alberta. They're going to have to helicopter him into some place where it's a safe riding, where he can get a by-election.
Possibly where you get a seat for him is if at a general election. I would say it's likely that the Liberals will regain Toronto St. Paul, for example. So that might well be the seat that you go for, something like that.
No, they're gonna find the safest seat they could possibly find.
Oh, they probably will.
It's not going to be safe out west, that's for sure.
No,
there are one or two Liberal seats out west, but they have to be very, very strong before they're going to be able to put him in any one of those.
Oh, I don't think they'll put him into a seat out west
unless they have one they know they're going to win.
Yeah. By the way, the other thing is that the ECOS poll that was published March the 3rd, so last week, had the Liberals at 41% and the Conservative at 36%.
Well, yeah, this is the honeymoon period, of course. If Carney's smart, he would call an election as soon as possible. JT will hand over the government or hand over the prime ministership to Carney within a couple of days, and then it's up to Carney to get his troops
I would say,
to take advantage of this honeymoon period.
Yeah, I would say he needs to be calling an election for, for mid-May.
Yeah, it's very, very things have changed.
What we don't want is another one of these express elections where everything's done by mid-April. That's not going to help anybody.
I'm not so sure. It may help Carney. Look,
it might help Carney, but what I mean is it's not going to, it's going to cause, like we had here in Ontario. I think that was we don't want one of these snap elections that's all too quick.
I don't know, that wasn't all that quick because everybody knew it was coming since the fall. So if any party was not prepared for an election, it's their fault because although it was a snap election, it was telegraphed way ahead of time. And if the Liberals and the NDP and other parties were not ready for the election, it's down to them.
Yeah.
But right now, how things have changed. Basically, the Conservatives going to win a landslide just a month ago. Now, they're very much compromised. But remember,
Canada-wide, as I said, 41%. Even Ontario, 46% for the Liberals and 36% for the Conservatives. When you consider that Doug, a couple of weeks ago, Doug Ford won 50% of the vote in a provincial election, that's quite a turnaround, right? Atlantic Canada, 58% Liberal, 29% Conservative. Quebec, 35% Liberal, 26% Conservative.
Well, that's on the strength of Carney himself.
Yeah.
It's up to Poilievre to reverse that again. It was a disadvantage for the Liberals to have an election before October. Now it is their advantage to have an election before October.
And let's put things into balance as well. In Alberta, 56% of the population agree with Conservative. All right. and in Manitoba, 38%, they're 1% a Conservative, 1% above the Liberals. So it's not universal what we're seeing here.
Well, it's not a drama teacher against a career politician now.
Yeah.
It is the Bank of Canada governor, the Bank of England governor, and world-renowned economists against a career politician.
Yes.
We'll see how that works out.
Yeah, exactly.
Plus Carney is much less emotional, more witty, more controlled. And now that's what Poilievre has to do. He has to match that. When he was fighting Trudeau, he was fighting the drama teacher and could make him look bad all the time. The guy across from him now has a lot of facts and figures, and he has credibility. He's not a drama teacher. He is a world famous economist. So what are you going to do about that?
Oh yeah, I know. Yeah. Okay, so what we've got some comments on: the longer the wait, the more time Pierre has to screw himself up. So I know it's not illegal, but I do not like an unelected prime minister. I'm with you, Mike. But it will sort itself out once we have an election.
Well, that's why prime ministers generally do not stay prime ministers unless they get elected somewhere.
Yeah.
So Mark Carney could call an election as the leader of the Liberal Party, as the prime minister, but if he wants to, he will have no credibility unless he gets a seat in Parliament.
Yeah, and Carney needs time to show he can handle current situations. But again, I'm a firm believer, like Mike, that we should go that unelected, leaders need to be. We shouldn't, even when there's a change of leadership, where the new leader is an MP already. I still believe that you should go to the people.
Well, we've survived this long with the system we've had, and we know that every prime minister has to find himself a seat pretty soon. Yeah. If they're going to have any credibility, or else there's going to be another election.
Well, and the other thing,
they're allowed to sit in Parliament unless they have a seat.
And the other thing, of course, is that Carney will not do what Bonnie Crombie did. Bonnie Crombie was sat in her own, in a precious Mississauga and lost.
Yes, and that has happened to many politicians and leaders of parties. It's just part of what happens up here in this country. So now we are in a situation. Will Carney be able to take advantage of this so-called honeymoon period?
Yeah.
ET was not able to do that during COVID times when his popularity spiked up. He tried to take advantage of that and become a majority leader. That didn't work for him. So we'll see what happens. I would say for Poilievre, he has to stay calm and carry on, basically, and find a means by which to have a more positive campaign, because right now the character assassination thing is not going to work. Although I will say, what we do forget about this is that Poilievre has brought 300,000 more conservatives into the Conservative Party. Yeah. So the Conservative Party has a lot of depth. This is a wave that's gone over, and it could be very temporal. When everything shakes back down again and people think, am I doing better now than I did before? They will probably vote against it.
I wonder.
The difference here, of course, is the existential threat of Trump trying to annex Canada.
Yeah, I wonder whether. Okay, so you're talking about membership of the Conservative Party, and this is where actually the breakdown by gender, for example, more female voters, 49%, support the Liberals than the Conservatives at 24%. Male voters are at 47% versus 33% for Liberal. 47% for the Conservative, 33% for Liberal. Breakdown by age: the young 18 to 34 are 42% Conservative, 25% Liberal. 35 to 49 are 38% Liberal, 37% Conservative. 50 to 64 are 48% Liberal, 35% Conservative. 65 plus are 54% Liberal, 28% Conservative. I wonder if those, those kind of might reflect where recruiting's going on in the various parties as well.
Hey, what's the matter with you? You didn't tell us what the non-binary, gay, LGBTQ vote was.
There's no figures on that.
Oh, there you go. DEI is gone.
Angela basically, let's step back one. Angela says a well-renowned banker against a paper boy. All right, that's the contest right now.
Yeah, okay. So it used to be, the drama teacher,
Yeah,
so yeah. I'm not so sure. The drama teacher did win. The drama teacher had really no credibility as a politician. They had to bring him in because he was suave, he was good looking, and his dad was the politician. So he had a lifelong connection with politics, but he showed no interest in it till later, and he was asked to come in and become the leader. Was he that good of a leader in the long run? I'm not so sure. And any leader has to depend on who was behind them anyway. So we'll see what happens going forward. The paperboy could beat the banker, and it may not. In real reality, as each different riding is a different riding. We are more likely we are still probably most likely vote conservative here in Niagara because the particular candidate is popular, and we'll see. Just like Wayne Gates. Wayne Gates was an NDP guy. He won here against all odds, against the blue wave. So we'll see. We'll see what happens.
I think there's a private message for you, Dave.
Screw it. I'm going for Wayne.
Okay, so John Ringer Beam is saying 300,000 more conservative members doesn't mean more seats. That's very true.
No, but it does mean a lot of more people out there willing to campaign on behalf of the Conservatives, door to door. And we found that during the election in the States, that was much more effective than the broad scope type of electioneering that happened with the Dems, when the Republicans, who had only about 20% of the money that the Democrats did, they did the old knock on the door thing, and it seemed to pay off for them.
Yeah. All right. So let's move on. Let's move on from there. Oh, we got one more comment. We are not the United States. Yep.
No, we're not the United States, but the idea that knocking on doors was more effective than a lot of the other stuff. At least that's what it appears to be, that the sort of the grassroots approach of the Republicans worked better than the media blitzes that the Dems were doing, even though both parties did the media blitzes and had their own campaign videos and all that. It was still person to person that probably had more of an effect. At least that's what they say anyway. We'll see. I know when the Liberals got desperate a few years ago, the provincial Liberals got desperate before they won their last election, before it went to Doug Ford. I had one of the ministers knock on my door. She was come down to Niagara, going from knocking. I don't know if it was the finance minister or what minister it was. I'd seen her on TV. I opened the door, and there's this lady I seen on TV, right, one of Ontario's ministers, and she's trying to talk me into voting Liberal. And I thought, well, what do you know? I mean,
but it's good to see. It's good to see even party leaders go out, knock it on the campaign trail.
Rob Nicholson came to my door more than once.
Yeah. No, actually, Rob Rob has had a reputation for knocking on doors, and in fact, happens with many, what used to happen in Britain is they'd have the whole team out there, and there'd be this is where the candidate needs to come and see. The candidate should come to Dave's address because he needs to listen to Dave's concerns.
Well, Ringo says here, like I said, they come from conservative ridings, then it makes no difference on how many doors they knock on. Well, that's not the point. They're not going to be knocking on doors they know. They're going to be knocking on other doors. That's the whole point. They have an army of possible volunteers that can go out and go into the areas where they're conservatives knocking on conservatives' doors. Yeah, that doesn't make any sense at all. They won't be doing that. They'll be knocking on every door, particularly the ones they don't know how they're going to vote. So John Smith is not going to knock on the door of John Jones because he knows Jones is going to vote conservative. He's going to go to Mrs. Robinson down the road, who typically votes for liberal. So that kind of thing.
Yeah. Well, okay. We really kind of where we are is probably the election's upon us. I think the noises that I'm hearing from the Liberals is that they're likely to go to the polls fairly soon.
Yeah, I think Carney is going to be able to look this over very and judge whether or not he can convert this wave of popularity into a government. Yeah. Now, obviously, he's not going to get a majority if he wins. If he loses, he might. The conservatives might only get a minority.
It's an interesting. That could be an interesting question. So, the MDP and Bloc could come in as the potential. The potential partners for the new Liberal government.
Well, Singh better get his act together because he's almost completely out of it right now. Now the Conservatives have lost popularity only because of this big surge in popularity of Mark Carney. Where are the NDP? They're almost nowhere to be seen.
Yeah, I know. And the worst about this is that from what I've been hearing, that it's predicted that Singh would lose his own seat in BC.
Well, look, if the NDP really get their act together, that will draw away from the Liberals if they can get their act together. But right now, and the Conservatives in the past have given money to the NDP as campaign donations, sort of on the sly, with hopes that they would challenge Liberal candidates in key ridings. But right now, the NDP are flat. Nobody's listening to them. They're completely inconsequential federally. And that's because Singh has hitched his wagon to the Liberals for way too long. He has become inconsequential. So he's got to change that around. The NDP have got to become some kind of force to be reckoned with, because they could, again, control the balance of power.
Yeah.
But they have to really get their act together.
Okay, so there is no breakdown where the new members come from, and they also have to get out and participate. Most will sign up and stay home. That's very true. That's very true, John. Absolutely true. Most of them will not be members in reality. They will not go door knocking.
No, but if you have 300,000 new members, among them, you'll have a lot of door knockers.
You will. That's for sure. Yep. Right. Okay. So moving on, just thought this one is, I still ask whenever I see these ones, an unexploded World War II bomb in Paris halted domestic and continental travel for several hours at Gare du Nord, which is France's most popular train station. I always ask myself how the hell it's taken this long to find this damn thing.
They're all over the place. They find them all the
I
time.
know.
I think there's
I
like
know.
300. The French have picked up like 300,000 unexploded bombs. That's not including the mines and the grenades and everything else that's been out there. And let's face it, it goes right back to World War One.
Oh
For
yeah, yeah.
every once in a while, a child will get killed by an old.
And they find more. They find them in France. They find them in Britain. They find them in Germany even today. 60-year, 80-year-old unexploded bombs.
Well, they found them in the. Didn't they find them in the Chippewa River too? The Chippewa Creek. A little while ago, they found some old unexploded ordnances.
No, you might well be
Remember,
right.
when you were at war, the amount of munitions just floods out of it.
Oh, I know.
When I was in Laos and Cambodia, but particularly Laos, that is a big problem there. In fact, they have all kinds of unexploded ordnances used as decorations there. They have pillars made out of old bombs that have been defused. That there's all kinds you can buy these all kinds of little leftover stuff from the war, the Vietnam War, and it still is killing Laotian farmers to this day. The Lao people are still because Laos got more bombs on it than any other country in history.
Yeah.
That little country, and because the U.S. the general was quoted, "We're going to bomb them back into the Stone Age," and the place is still littered even now.
Oh yeah, yeah. Well, there was also in the Gulf War. My mother-in-law was actually out there as part of the Peace Corps, actually in the initial Gulf. Actually, the initial thing in 1990, not the later Gulf War.
The George Bush Senior Gulf War.
Yeah, yeah. She picked up a massive, a massive unexploded shell, American shell that had not gone off in the, that had, for some, whatever reason, the hotel she was in was painted up as "Do Not Touch." But in the gardens of the Rashid Hotel, there was actually an unexploded American bomb.
Huh. Well, look, there's supposed to be 30,000 unexploded American ordnance in Gaza, 30,000 in a strip that's pretty much 5 kilometers long and 20 kilometers long.
Yeah,
in a very small place. The size the size of Grenada. The island of Grenada. So there's 30,000 unexploded bombs. How is that possible when the American ordnance is supposed to be the best in the world?
Yeah.
If they have the best ordnance in the world, the most effective ordnance in the world, and 30,000 are left unexploded, you can imagine how many were dropped.
Yep. Oh yeah, absolutely.
We had to be at least 10 times that, 300,000. That sure cost the American taxpayer a lot of money.
Yeah. And it's interesting that as we go to places like Paris and we find these kind of things all the time.
Yeah. Like I said, they dig them up all the time in the World War I areas because the ordnance were going back and forth across the small areas, the trenches. It's all kinds of ordnance unexploded in.
We've got breaking news here: an announcement for the Green Party in the federal election. Karen Fraser will be the candidate.
Yay, Karen! Yay, Karen! Look, my vote is cheap. If you want to bribe me, it's real cheap. A couple of bottles of beer, I'll get you there.
Yeah, and they have unexploded nukes in the States. That's true. They have plenty of ICBMs in bunkers still. I don't even.
You don't want them to explode. That's for sure.
I don't even know that those bunkers could even open anymore because they've been sealed shut since the 60s.
I don't know. It's interesting to note though what we're talking about ordnance and bombs and that. I came across the United States has been NATO's case because NATO countries have not been spending what they should be doing according to the NATO convention. But this happened when all the countries, including the United States, reduced the amount of defense spending way back when the Soviet Union collapsed. It wasn't until 2008 that the Americans ramped their spending back up, defense spending back up 2001 when 9/11, when it was ramped up again in the United States, but the other countries didn't follow it. So that is a bit of an explanation of how NATO got so behind in its defense spending.
Okay, so what John Beam was talking about here is the unexploded nukes in the States are ones that they've dropped and lost.
Oh, those? Oh, boy. Someone tripping, going through a hike through the desert and tries to kick this rock out of the way, and it might not be a rock.
Well, at least the one thing about them is that you have to get secondary. The nukes only trigger with secondary or tertiary explosion, so you have to fire them off with conventional bomb blast before they reach the required heat to set off the nuke.
It depends. It depends if it's an atomic bomb or a hydrogen bomb. If it's an atomic bomb, that's much more dangerous because all you need to do is trigger the explosion of two pieces of uranium together to get critical mass, which then starts the explosion. However, the hydrogen bomb needs an atomic bomb as a wick. So two pieces of critical mass have to come together to start the hydrogen reaction, to first start the atomic reaction that begins the hydrogen nuclear fusion reaction. So it's a complicated process, and usually the bombs have boron around them, the nuclear part, which was produced here and in the Norton.
Yeah.
The boron is a shield so that if there is an accident, the free molecules or that float around will be absorbed by the boron, and that will hopefully diffuse the atomic part of the bomb. It's very interesting how it works. Very interesting how boron works. Boron was these things that were encapsulated the bombs and transportation. That's why it was necessary, because if there was a mishap and the two pieces came together to hit critical mass, then the boron would be able to absorb those molecules that would otherwise split the atoms.
Yeah. All right. One more comment. Conventional trigger detonated atomic bombs and atomic detonated the hydrogen bomb. Yeah, that's what I understood to be the case. You had to have a conventional trigger to detonate an A bomb and then an A bomb to detonate an hydrogen bomb. Anyway, moving on. You still there, Dave? Or we lost you?
Yes, I lost. Well, depends on who lost who. I lost you or you lost me.
Yeah. Okay, so Nickel CEO says that Canada can ship its critical materials anywhere in the world.
If you want, half of U.S. nickel needs come from Canada. So half the nickel the U.S. use comes right here from Ontario. Basically, what the nickel CEO has said, that we can ship it anywhere in the world because it's in demand everywhere in the world. It's just easier to send it to the U.S. If they don't want our nickel, we'll sell it somewhere else, he's saying. But if we refuse to sell it, like Premier Ford said, then that could give the Diaper Don an excuse to come up here and invade. Aha, that's critical minerals we need for our defense. So, and they're withholding them, so we better go get them. We find here that we are in very dangerous situations because what has happened between Trudeau and the other negotiators in Canada, what has frightened them so much, is that the United States has not only wanted to annex Canada by economic means, but has also began to say that the border is not legal, that the border that has been established and confirmed over 100 years ago, finally finalized, and the 49th parallel had been established long ago, but the other little tweaks here and there on the border didn't really get finalized until about the 20s. Trump has said that those borders are irrelevant now, and they were erroneously drawn. So he's challenging the very borders of Canada and the United States. He has challenged the water rights that have been due to treaties. There's all kinds of different treaties along the border, and he's challenged every one of them. So he's trying to negate the every kind of treaty possible to give him an excuse to do anything he wants.
And you note that what becomes part of the United States, Southern Ontario, probably the most influential part of Canada, becomes part of the United States.
First thing they'll go for is the oil, I think, because you already have a separatist movement in Alberta, and you already have a lot of American wannabes in Alberta. You have a lot of American wannabes in Ontario, that's for sure, but less so here than probably Alberta. So in order to, it'll be a kind of divide and conquer strategy if he goes ahead and uses it. I think his first conquest will want to be Iceland. But he's going to put the pressure. If he says the border is not legitimate, that border is not legitimate. It wasn't, just like the NAFTA agreement wasn't legitimate, and now the USMCA agreement is not completely legitimate. They're getting ripped off. Well, they get ripped off on the border, didn't they? Look at that. Look at these old treaties. Who signed these old treaties, right? The United States should be go up to Yellowknife. It says so right here, and remember, President Polk wanted the border to be at the 54th parallel. He used to say 54 or war. It turned out to be the 49th parallel. But Trump could say, "Oh no, look, it should have been the 54th. We got ripped off." So everything is being challenged by the Trump regime. Our borders, our water rights, are all different treaties that we have, and it should I don't know, it should be quite a problem if he starts sending troops here. I don't know what's going to happen, but if you hold back the nickel that's essential for U.S. defense spending, would that justify troops coming up here? I don't know. This guy's getting a little bit dangerous. He's off his lid, I think.
Yeah. Okay. So China's foreign minister is actually vowing to fight Trump tariffs as well.
He's putting us in a very difficult situation, and the EU too. What other major economy can we trade with? China's one of them. And right now we're in a situation where Canada and Mexico may coordinate their efforts against the United States, and China may step into this as well. Now, do we really want to deal with China? But if we have no other choice, that's what we're going to do. It is insane. Our whole alliance thing is topsy-turvy.
Yeah. They're supposed to be our greatest ally.
Yeah, they're supposed to be our best buddy. We were their best buddy when the only time that Article 5 was ever invoked, it was in support of the United States, and now they're saying they'll never help us. Well, we already did. We already did. The one and only time Article 5 was invoked. Jimmy, Kip Finn, your boy is dropping the ball. He needs more of a plan. He is helping the Liberals win.
And that's in relation to Kip Finn's earlier comment, just vote the lunatic Liberals and Trump will turn his focus out, just vote out the lunatic Liberals and Trump will turn his focus elsewhere. Right? Media is making this bigger deal than it is. Well,
that's what media does.
Yeah. So we can just adopt Trump's policies. Then he will take his mind elsewhere. Nope, I don't want that crazy policies here. and Mike Cushman. I'm not going to read that one. Right, there we go.
Well, we don't know what the Diaper Don's going to do. He is acting like a gangster, and that Diaper Don type of moniker kind of fits because he's working more like a gangster than a politician. And the media does that. That's what the media does. The media can't be trusted because you have to learn how to read the media. I go through a lot of spectrum. I try to get the right wing and the left wing views and kind of sort them out. They're usually too extreme or too agenda driven, but sometimes they have a nice little pearl because they'll add things to their news that are true, that push their own agenda, but they'll leave out others. So you have to go through the buffet of media and pick and choose. You usually can tell by the way it's worded.
Yep. All right. Moving on to the next one. Court orders a forfeiture of $100,000 so it's seized from a chronic high-stakes gambler in the Niagara casinos.
This has taken a long time to get around, hasn't it?
Yeah. We first reported this about 2 years ago, didn't we?
Yeah.
Because there was a lot of speculation upon there being a gang associated with it, which turned out not to be so true.
Yeah. So what happened here is it takes a very long time. What's happened here is a guy with a name that's like 2 miles long.
Yeah, true.
Yeah. It looks to me like it's a South Asian name, but I'm not sure.
Branavan Kana Pathipali, I think is his name.
Yes. So he's key. What happens? How they launder money through a casino? People come in, they buy a huge amount of casino chips, and then they walk out and then come back later and cash them, and that legitimizes the money. It can be traced to the casino, so now it is laundered. Someone in the casino, and with this particular case, spotted this, thought it was a highly suspicious conversion, and so they reported it. And this fella's got, I don't know, 5 different passports, 6 different identities,
12 aliases, 14 addresses, 13 phone numbers, 5 driver's licenses, and various passports. Yep.
Yeah. So this guy is quite obviously a guy trying to launder money, and he may be an agent doing it for a number of different people.
Yeah.
20,000 of it might be from Singh over there. Another 20,000 could be for, Mrs. Raja or something over there. So he may be an agent because, anyway, he's got a complicated way of disguising the money, but they're hip to this right now because some years earlier they had somebody come in with $80,000, buy the chips, and then just walk straight out, according to their video. But it took them like 4 years to chase that guy down.
Well, you see, it would occur to me that if you're going in, if you want to launder $100,000 worth of money, at least what you go in there is you go in there, you get your $100,000 worth of chips. You go into some form of, you go into a room, play, I don't know, play one of the games, at least drop $5,000 worth of, and lose $5,000 worth of chips before you walk out.
Oh, I'd just like to go back to the media, like why we want to trust the media and how what was it kept saying the media is over exploded things. And here's a quote from Hans Rosling, who is he's now dead, but he did a lot of work for the UN and tried to alleviate hunger and disease all over the world. He says, when interviewed, he says, you can't use now news outlets if you want to understand the world. He says the news outlets are reporting on the current situation, and right now the situation consists of wars, conflicts, and chaos. And that was back then. And no, that is completely wrong. You're wrong. And after the question, statistics from the IMF and the UN, nothing controversial. The facts are not up to discussion. I'm right and you're wrong. That's what he's telling a journalist, basically. So he had quite a bit of criticism for the media for not having the long outlook, very short, what's happening now, and exploiting every little fracas to make it as big as possible to sell papers or get attention in the media. So that's and I think that's good approach.
All right. And that, of course, is why, this, or, so the dramatic words we were just talking about. Yeah.
Yeah. So that basically casinos are still used to launder money. Let's put it that way.
Yeah. And okay, so here we go. John Ringer Beam is saying money laundering. If you buy chips and leave, then it's probably you're a bad guy. Right.
Well, more sophisticated guys go in, make a show of it, hang around for an hour or two, play this game, play that game.
Yeah.
Lose or win small amounts of money, and then leave. But they're still on camera. And
but you drop $5,000. You drop, you take $100,000 of chips. You take $100,000 of chips. You drop $5,000, and then you leave.
Basically, yeah. But you get a meal and you make a night of it or something. You make a show of doing it. Even that can be interpreted because all of a sudden, they got you on camera getting $100,000 worth of chips, and you spent 5,000 of them, and then you walk out with the chips, and then they don't see you again. But it takes, according to this article, it seems to take a long time to track all that down. It's an expensive process, it looks like.
Yeah. All right.
Even a guy like this who is completely obvious that he is a money launderer. Yeah.
Okay. So Kretchen, from one old man to another, stop this nonsense. Unfair tariffs and trying to damage the Canadian economy in order to take over Canada. That's one of the things he apparently said. Mike Cushman, I know that the casinos and banks are laundering money through Canada, and they know that casinos and banks are laundering money through Canada and don't care. One of the major problems is the runaway real estate.
Well, I noticed one of the things that the Dems are doing and others opponents of Trump are keep bringing up his age again. It worked against Biden. They hope it's going to work against Trump. There's Kretchen, who's 91, talking to somebody who's not even 80 yet, saying one old man to another. So old keeps coming into the picture with Trump. You're old. What is this old guy doing? Old. So they're trying to use what Trump used against Biden now against him. So you're gonna hear that a lot when it comes to Trump going forward. An old man, old this, old that. It's gonna frost him. It's gonna get him pissed, but that's good.
Okay, and John Ringo Beam is basically saying we don't do money laundering in old brown envelopes anymore.
Yeah.
Right. And if you're a high roller in the casinos, you can piss in the vase in the hallway. They do not care. High rollers can do whatever they want in there.
Well,
True.
Trump's so ignorant. We heard his comment on Lesotho, and he shows his complete ignorance. But if anyone asks Trump about money laundering, he'll just tell you that they use special soap so the ink doesn't run.
Okay, so Angelo is basically saying, John is saying his speech was awesome, being Cratchit. And Angela says Trump has a type of dementia. She's done some research into this. And not all old people have dementia. That's an important thing to know.
I was born with it.
So that was your excuse when you performed badly at school, eh?
Definitely. Well, anytime I got myself into a jam, anytime. I was born this way. I couldn't help it. Well, so basically speaking, we're gearing up for this trade war.
So
the trade war has been declared against us, and so we're going to have to stay calm and carry on. I'll bring that up again. I think that's our best approach here. It's going to hurt us, but we have to stay calm and carry on until the war is over.
Right. Okay. So remember, Karen says, "Have you some form of dementia?" It says a lot about you, I think. And it says, "I passed lunch at school." Right.
Hey, I got A's in recess.
A's in recess. Yes, I bet you did. Yeah. And Randy's saying that says a lot about Trump. Okay, there we go. So thank you for all your comments there. And I think we better kind of call it quits at that point.
Okay, without further ado, I bid you adieu. Thanks everyone for listening in, and your comments are very much appreciated.